Have you ever felt completely invisible to the person sitting right next to you, even though they are clearly active online for everyone except you?
It is not a glitch in your relationship. It is a calculated tactic designed to erode your self-worth. Today, we are exposing the dark mechanics of digital devaluation.
Okay, so let's dive right into this explainer, because this phenomenon, it is absolutely not just some minor oversight. Whether it's entirely conscious or maybe flying just a little bit under the radar of the person doing it, digital devaluation is a very specific strategic use of silence and digital exclusion. It's kind of like a giant puzzle with 5 distinct pieces. And honestly, understanding these 5 signs is the key to seeing exactly how this quiet erosion takes place right in front of your eyes.
Sign number 1. The sudden disappearance and how it creates psychological whiplash.
So in the beginning, you experience this great before phase, right? There's frequent tagging, couple posts, and you're actively included in their digital life. But then, there's a quiet transition into the after. And that after is just a sterile, completely empty feed. Now the crazy part is, this shift is almost rarely announced. Nobody sits you down and explains it. It just happens gradually enough that you might literally find yourself questioning, wait, am I just imagining this change over the past few weeks? But it happens consistently enough that the pattern becomes totally undeniable once you actually track it.
And this creates what's known as psychological whiplash. You are left managing the private confusion of a very public erasure. Think about how disorienting that actually is for a second. The relationship itself hasn't formally ended. I mean, you're still together in person, yet the public evidence of the relationship's existence has been steadily, deliberately removed. So you're just left trying to make sense of this massive shift that nobody has actually acknowledged out loud.
Which brings us to sign number 2, soft launching singlehood. The deliberate repositioning.
This is where things get methodical. First, you might start noticing your presence quietly disappearing from the frame. Literally, photos get cropped just to exclude you. Then, you start seeing solo stories that totally omit any reference to your shared location or the fact that you are right there doing these things together. And finally, and this is the real kicker, while you are being visually erased, their engagement with other accounts, other conversations, and other forms of public connection continues at absolute full intensity.
Now, I want to be clear here, this isn't necessarily evidence of traditional infidelity. Actually, it's evidence of a deliberate or semi-deliberate repositioning. You are being slowly and methodically edited out of the narrative they are presenting to the outside world, and they're doing this even while you remain physically present in the relationship. It creates this profound disconnect between your private reality and their public broadcast.
Moving on to sign number 3, lowering the baseline. Training expectations downward. Look at the stark difference in how their attention is distributed. Acquaintances, or even complete strangers, receive immediate engagement and full intensity responses. It's instant. Meanwhile, you, their actual partner, are left waiting hours for a reaction that is noticeably lower in intensity. That's if one arrives at all. The contributions you make, the special moments you highlight, the photos you really hope they'll engage with, they're systematically met with a lesser response than what your partner freely gives to total strangers. And here is exactly why this disparity matters so much. Silence functions as training. Let me say that again. Silence is training. Once this new, inferior baseline is established, you actually begin adjusting your own expectations downward. You start sharing less. You start expecting less. You ultimately end up normalizing a level of digital regard that, honestly, if you'd experienced it on day 1 of the relationship, would have seemed clearly, obviously inadequate.
That sets the stage for sign number 4, escalation and confusion, exploiting the lowered baseline. Because you've slowly accepted this new baseline, more pointed, hurtful behaviors are suddenly way easier to introduce. It escalates. Now we're talking about things like a public comment that suddenly undermines you, or incredibly obvious, highly visible engagement with someone else's content immediately following a period of totally ignoring yours. These escalating behaviors slip right through the cracks simply because silence and low engagement have already become the accepted everyday norm.
Think about it like this. Early on, say in month 1 of dating, these behaviors would have been a massive, glaring red flag. They would have triggered a necessary confrontation right then and there. But now, because of that lowered threshold we just talked about, these exact same behaviors simply register as a continuation of a pattern you have already quietly learned to accept. The baseline of devaluation has effectively blinded you to the actual severity of the disrespect.
And this leads directly to the specific type of confusion this entire process produces. You see, there is no explicit conflict. There's no giant fight you can point to. There is no formal statement that anything in the relationship has actually changed. And that makes it genuinely difficult to raise the issue without sounding, even to your own ears, like you are overreacting to nothing concrete. It operates completely below the threshold of direct confrontation, which just makes you feel incredibly unseen by the very person who claims to see you the most.
Finally, we arrive at sign number 5, tracking the trajectory, the big picture.
The crucial thing to remember here is you cannot react to any single moment in isolation. No individual instance looks significant enough on its own to really justify a confrontation. Instead, you have to look at the macroscopic pattern. It always starts with being prioritized and highly visible. Then, there's that gradual movement into silence and lowered baselines, until finally, you become entirely peripheral and invisible. You have to track this trajectory over time, rather than getting caught up in fighting over one single missing like or comment.
So what is the real danger of this dynamic? I'll leave you with this final thought. It is the trajectory that matters, occurring slowly enough to avoid detection while still producing a very real and cumulative cost to how worthy of attention you have started to feel.